Good evening. Thank you everybody for coming out on a cold evening to the 9th grade parent presentation. My name is Bonnie Stevenson. I am one of the school counselors for the freshman class. My colleague Brenda Fisher, right here. We divided the freshman class, so I have students whose last name starts with L through Z. She has A through K. And since that's my first slide, I'll get right into it. So tonight, here are the topics that we're going to be talking about. This is the part where you meet the counselors. Talking about Innovation Lab, academics, career planning, and at the end, mental wellness. So for those of you who have older students, we are organizing the counseling department a little bit differently this year. So we have 2 counselors per grade level. So you just met the amazing class of 2022 team. Here are the names of some of the other grade level counselors. So Mrs. Mitchell and Mr. Millette for class of 2021. Mr. Sweeney and Mrs. DK, we call her, for the juniors or class of 2020. And Mrs. Brenner and Mrs. Rose will take the class of 2019. And then those of us who were here last year, who have students that became seniors this year, are keeping our own seniors. We also are lucky enough to have 3 counseling interns, Mr. Banning, Ms. Harris, and Mr. Myers, who are finishing up their Masters in School Counseling and spending time with us all year. And then in the counseling office, you may have had contact with Mrs. Kemke, Mrs. Gantos, and Mrs. Volman. Mrs. Volman is in charge of testing. Okay, and some of this presentation is just so that you know what we told your students today. But I know when I had students in high school, sometimes I wasn't exactly sure how my son or daughter could see their counselor. So these are the ways that your student can get time with us. So if they're coming by the counseling office, if they need to talk to me, I always encourage them to stop by. If I'm not busy doing anything, my favorite thing to do would be to talk to them in the moment that they have a question. But if I'm busy, there is a mechanism in the counseling lobby where they can fill out a yellow pass. So they tell me their name, kind of generally what they want to talk about, and then they give me times that would be good for me to send for them. I send the pass back to them within a day, and we meet. There's a new thing. Some of you who have been emailing me and you say, I'd like to talk to you about something, I might say, look at the link below my signature. It's a link to this new fangled technology called Calendly, where if you click on it, you go right into my calendar. So students can set appointments by clicking on that. I also have a QR code to the same platform on my door. People can email me. I also have a whiteboard. They can write their name on my board. So one thing I guess I'd like you to reiterate to your students, if they come up and I'm busy, don't walk out and just never let me know that you came or needed to talk to me about something. There's a lot of ways to get a hold of me, and I want to be sure and meet with your children. Okay, academics. So the transition to freshman year, I always try to follow up with students during this year and see how has it been coming to the high school. It's a question I ask every freshman, especially when we're doing scheduling for the following year. You know, for the most part, it seems like students like the freedom they have in the high school. They like it that they see that they can maybe take more classes that are in line with their interests. You know, that's going to happen more and more as they progress through high school. But sometimes at the beginning it can be hard, and I think some of the tougher times I've seen with students have been in the transition to freshman year. So if your child is struggling, know that that's not so uncommon. I'm going to back up because there's one thing that I want to mention too. A lot of people aren't exactly sure, I think students, parents, teachers maybe even sometimes, what ways school counselors work with students. So I've been giving this explanation a lot this year. I kind of call it the 3-bucket approach. So there are 3 ways in which school counselors work with their students: personal counseling, academic support, post-secondary planning. At Sycamore, I will say, I feel pretty lucky. I think I do about a third of my work in my little unscientific study. So, personal counseling, we are not doing therapy here. We do not diagnose mental health conditions, but we are available to talk to students if they're struggling with personal things in their life, especially if those things are affecting their academics, if they're affecting their well-being. So I am a resource for that. I'm going to get in here in a minute to academic support, and that is another way I spend time with your students. If they're struggling in their classes, certainly when we do scheduling, what do their grades mean? Then the third bucket, post-secondary planning, we start those conversations now, and we will increase those conversations as they get closer to their junior and senior year and are making plans for after high school. So what I said to, and I don't know if you all know, but Mrs. Fisher and I are going into your students' aviator bells. We started last week. We're going in, I'm going into groups of about 30, so 2 aviator bells, doing some of this presentation. Oh, and actually, we're going in a little bit different order. That's right, we're throwing in Cinovation Lab. Is Mrs. Warren? Oh, you're going to talk about it? Okay, sorry. Hold that thought, I'll be back.
Hi, I'm Isabel Henry. I'm a sophomore here at Sycamore High School. I'm also in the Cinovation Lab program, which is a really cool program that we've started this year. So basically what the Cinovation Lab is a breaking down of school. So instead of having 48-minute bells and sitting and having the teacher tell us lectures and give us notes and stuff, we have complete control over our learning. We are in the little theater and we've redesigned it so it really works with our space. And we have our teachers there to help us, but they're more mentors and helpers instead of teachers. We have complete control over our learning, which means that we do our own pace, and so we have control over when I'm going to do math and how long I'm going to do math. I have to learn the information myself, so I watch videos of my teacher teaching it. I find different resources. We also have the textbook, and we have other worksheets that we are able to do. We have tests and quiz grades instead of having homework grades as well, and that it allows us to have show that we've met the standards and show that we understand the content. And so we have A's and B's and then incomplete, which basically means you haven't gotten there yet, and we are really able to dive deep into that and learn the content. Up on the screen it has some different aspects of Cinovation Lab. So we have personal time with our teachers. I can go up to any teacher at any time and ask a question. They can sit down with me for 2 minutes or 30 minutes. And it's really nice because I can just have that one-on-one time with my teachers. We have a lot of personalized learning, so that's PBL. We have project-based learning, where we have our passion projects that we're starting right now, where students get to choose a topic to research and to do a project about, and we have complete freedom over that. I'm working on how education affects student learning, and I'm in the early stages of this project, but I'm really excited to get started, and I'm really excited to do my research about it. We go through the design thinking process with that, so we learn how to empathize and define the problem, and then test it and redo everything. And it's a lot of fun, and it's a lot of work, but it's totally worth it. We have a lot of, that's the real world projects as well. We have this Cinovation Lab, which is a new space similar to our hub, where we have comfy seating and different lab tables where we don't have assigned seating because we have that flexible time. My day looks very different than this regular student. I usually take charge of my learning, and I like to take leadership opportunities that come up. So I have a lot of meetings that come with that and a lot of opportunities that come with that. So I've been going to the junior high and talking to the 8th graders about Cinovation Lab all this week. And it's been really helpful because I just get to tell everybody about what I've been learning and tell everyone that I'm excited about education. So if you could go to the next slide. Thank you. So traditional schooling has its benefits and its pros and cons, and we have our pros and cons, but we are really excited to learn instead of just do the work. And that's what I've really learned about Cinovation, because our teachers are there to help us instead of teach us, which is really helpful and it's really encouraging. Thank you.
Okay. So as I was saying, when I got to this part of the presentation when I was in Aviatorville today, I said, if you're struggling in your classes, I'm really happy. And I'm sure the students were like, what? But you know, here we are at high school now, and I feel like I wouldn't be doing my job if your children just skated through high school and never had challenges and could do a little minimum and get great grades. So when a student is struggling, and I know that can be hard, and sometimes if the whole ball of wax, like all of their classes, is too much, we do need to talk about maybe making changes. But a lot of times if a student for the first time in high school is struggling with a class, this is an awesome opportunity to figure out where do I go to get help. And that skill is like invaluable. And you know, after they leave here and they go to college, we want them to know how to get help when the going gets tough. So that's how I kind of introduce my academic conversation with them. So what's up here right now is a report card. And it just looks kind of like a regular report card. The first quarter GPA is an average of the grades from the first quarter. The cumulative GPA, and I tell them this, and I'm sure a lot of you know this, is these grades plus all the other grades you've earned before you've come here, which for some ninth graders, they have earned grades that count towards their high school GPA at the junior high. The last class on that list is called AP Computer Science Principles. There's an asterisk next to it. The asterisk means it's a weighted class. And so I'll ask the students, do you know what a weighted class is? And they're kind of shy. Some of them know, but I think some of them don't know. So a weighted class means that you get a bump. So if an A is worth a 4, B is worth a 3, C is worth a 2, as you compute it into the overall GPA. In an accelerated class at Sycamore, you get a 0.5 jump, so a B is now worth a 3.5 as it computes into that average. If it's an AP class like this one, that B that the student earned counts as a 4. You get a whole point jump into your overall GPA. And at our school, accelerated classes and AP classes are weighted, honors classes are not weighted, but the word honors looks awesome on high school transcript. Then I'll ask them, do those first quarter grades ever appear on your transcript? And by show of hands, do your first quarter grades show up on your transcript? Who thinks yes? Who thinks no? No, they don't. So what shows up on the transcript are semester grades. So first semester average will be computed by the time we break in December. And that first semester average will be made up of quarter 1 grade, quarter 2 grade, and the exam grade. Now the quarter grades count twice as much as the exam grade. So that's how things end up on the transcript. Another thing I mentioned when we're looking at a transcript, and it's always a little bit tricky because I'm just getting to know your sons and daughters. I know that for some students, I need to tell them now is the time to be serious about school. I know that for others, they're studying a lot of hours, they're feeling a lot of pressure, and I need to tell them, you are a whole person, you are not just your grades. So I'm kind of getting to know students. But one thing that I do mention, because I don't want them to come back and say, I didn't know that 9th grade was important. I say, okay, think about the seniors who are applying for college right now. Okay, so they've sent their applications. Ohio State had a big deadline November 1st. Does Ohio State see their senior grades? A lot of college decisions are made before the colleges see the senior grades. Sometimes they will want a mid-year transcript. So the freshman year is actually pretty important. The senior classes are examined by the colleges, but the grades from freshman, sophomore, and junior year are the actual grades that the colleges a lot of times are making their decisions on. So that's a transcript. Semester exams, for those of you who are new, that week before we break in December will be an exam week. And I think we're still trying to figure out exactly how it's going to work. But in the past, there's been an exam for first bell on Monday, and then 2 after that. So at the very least, there are shorter days, And that last week is pretty much made up of exams. Any questions about any of that? That's the plan. That's how it's been in the past. On Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, they were done at 11:30, but that might be adjusted. I'm hearing that it's not. Transportation. The buses run at 11:30. That's a really good question. Applicable for Sinovation Lab, same exam schedule?
They will get out of school at the same time. Whether or not they will be taking exam 1 on Monday, I think that will be up to the students if they're learning at their own pace.
Okay, so but the transportation for them will be at the same time?
Correct.
Good questions. Okay, I just mentioned this to them and to you. There is something called the Ohio Diploma with Honors. It's Ohio Department of Education program. At the bottom there are 7 conditions, and I don't know why English is not listed. That's another one of the conditions, taking 4 years of English. Students have to do all but one of those to qualify for the Ohio Diploma with Honors. It's something that is affixed to their diploma. They get recognized for it in the graduation program. The Ohio Diploma with Honors has nothing to do with college admission because you don't earn it until you graduate. But as I talk to students, scheduling going forward, I always make sure that we're thinking about this, because if a student can qualify for it, they should get it. I'll also mention there are some other specific diploma with honors now. You can see over on the left, a STEM one, an arts one, and I would direct you to the Ohio Department of Education to look at the specific things that you need to do to get those other diploma with honors. Okay, so what do students do if they're struggling? I kind of covered this. Struggling is part of learning. Talking with their teacher is a really, really important first thing to do. Teachers can keep students from spinning their wheels a lot. Teachers can reassure. Teachers are willing to work with students if they're struggling. I know that's hard sometimes for students to approach their teachers, but it's an important part of advocating for themselves, and we really support that. Here are the main sources of academic support we have in the building. So Focus is after-school academic support. There are teachers in the hub for the different content areas, Monday through Thursday. There is also math help with math teachers before school every day. Guided study hall is something that internally we're doing a little bit more examination of, what exactly is going on with the student. If a student has a study hall, based on evaluation by our RTI team, it may be converted to a guided study hall, which is a study hall where they are with a teacher who is helping them in a certain content area. Fast Track is a peer mentored study hall program. Some of your sons and daughters are probably in Fast Track Study Hall where they've been paired with a peer mentor, and they see that peer mentor every day. The peer mentor sometimes can help with content, but more so is helping them organize, know when they have tests, know how to prepare, and is kind of an ambassador to the building for newer students. And then Flight Crew, this is new this year. This is peer academic support that happens during Aviator Bell in the hub. So there are students that are good in the different content areas available to help during Aviator Bell. This is the Focus schedule. It's also online, right? Because I know it's kind of, I was hoping my voice will make it. I think it's going to make it. And now I'm going to introduce Mrs. Sarah Taylor, just in the nick of time. And she's going to talk about Great Oaks.
So I'm here just to talk about career exploration, and it's kind of like, why do career exploration? Number one, provides a reality check that gives students a chance to explore careers and learn about different occupations. It expands their horizons. That can expose them to occupations they didn't know existed. And can save you some time and money because they're less likely to change college majors and more likely to complete education if those are matched to their interests and what they eventually want to do. So I have a pretty good video here we're going to watch just for a few minutes. If I can get these guys done, I'll get it started from here. guys hit the link to start the video, please?
It's quite shocking when you think about it. Ask any adult to describe how they approached 3 significant life choices: their major, their college, and their career. Ask them to recall, in order, which they chose first, second, and third. They'll probably tell you that the first thing they chose was the college they wanted to attend. Perhaps they picked a parent's alma mater, or one based upon location. And after choosing a college, most settled on their major, but usually not right away. And that choice is too often driven by current interests or the persuasion from a friend to declare the same major. Finally, somewhere near or even after graduation, they then picked their career. They embarked onto the job market expecting to get hired given their education. But in today's economy, that is a rude awakening for students and parents alike. 33% of college graduates are still underemployed, well into their 30s. Most graduating high school students today make these choices in the same order. But when we ask self-aware, mature adults what the selection order should be, they respond without hesitation. Choose an initial career first, a college major second, and the college itself third. This order just makes sense. Your career choice dictates what major to pursue, which in turn helps identify the best college or training choice. Our educational system is very well intentioned, but incredibly misaligned. The truth is, the pendulum has swung too far toward college preparation and away from career preparation. We encourage a college-going culture even as early as elementary school, with university pendants decorating second-grade classrooms, and an exorbitant amount of time in high school is spent on college application essays and the FAFSA. At some point in recent history, we have transitioned from asking the more important question of what do you want to be when you grow up, to now asking where are you going to college. The problem isn't that we need more students to attend college. The problem is most are not finishing. Enrollments in colleges and universities have reached an all-time high, but over 45% of students who enter are not completing their degree. Often, this is because they are juggling too much. They discover they picked the wrong major or attended the wrong institution, or they don't see the connection between the classes and the job market. In fact, for most college dropouts, they simply lose interest. For every young person in America, whatever their background, one of the essential purposes of schooling should be to help them develop the knowledge and skills needed to search for and obtain work that they find satisfying.
We'll just go on.
At age 22, I was completely immersed.
I think, yeah, it was on autoplay, so you have to.
The Pentagon and counterterrorism. Everything that I did in
Sorry,
my
guys.
adolescent life was to prepare me for my fantasy career.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
are we back to here and is it?
Yeah, and then go on to the next slide. Okay, so what's the goal of career planning? The goal is for students to, not for them to choose one particular occupation, but just to start understanding the process and narrow it down to their areas of interest and the things that they might want to do. And you guys matter the most. Parents have the most influence. Study after study has shown that to be true. And I know if you're like most parents, you're really busy, you got a lot of things going on, you run the household, you work, you're driving kids all over the place, and squeezing in one more activity seems like, oh, I can't do that, I don't have time for it. But the reality is you do have time, and whether or not you're aware of it, you already are shaping their career interest and their development. Every time you talk about your salary, your work, what's going on, the highs and lows, even the selection of things, the clothes that you put on to go to your job, those are all sending messages to your children about careers. What you do for a living and how your child perceives it will all influence their vision of work. And preparing your child for the world of work or for their career is a critical part of your parenting. It's like the mama bird preparing the baby bird to shove them out of the nest type of thing. So think about the messages you received about working when you were young. And in order to give your children the best possible picture, you need to get an up-to-date view of what the market is like. And Brenda and I were just talking earlier about how that's changed. It used to be, you go to one job and you'd be there for 30 years, you get the gold watch and that sort of thing. That's not true anymore. So it's a balance between that post-secondary training and the skills that you have. And we were talking about, there's a new book out that says you'll change careers or jobs, 13 to 15 times. So you're talking about, that's a lot. So you think about kids, and even 5 years ago, some of the jobs that exist now, they did not exist then. So it's really hard to try to prepare kids for something that we don't know what it's going to be out there. So what's the key is, it has to be that lifelong career awareness, and it's an activity that goes on forever. So there's some free resources out there for you. Career Connections is the framework that Ohio has put into place, and if you guys will click on the link there to show you what that looks like. So if you go to the Ohio Department of Education, you type in Career Connections, this comes up as Career Pathways. And there's, it's kind of cool. Bonnie, if you want to just click on one of those, I don't care, just pick one. Hopefully it'll open. The PDF might work better. Click on the PDF. So here's an example if your student was interested in working with animals. So the Ohio Department of Ed and different places have worked together to put these into place. And they kind of break it down so you can see certificate type things. If you want to get a more experience, then that's what those little dotted lines are. And if you go on to the second page, where this can be helpful, I think if you just scroll down. Yeah, there you go. So where this can be helpful as you're looking at what your child is interested in, they suggest classes they could take in high school. I know Bonnie talked earlier about they'll get more freedom to choose things that they're interested in as time goes. These are just some samples out there. Doesn't mean you have to go this direction, but this is out there for you as a resource. So as you're talking to your child about what they might want to do, you could go and say, okay, you're interested in working with animals, but your biology grade isn't going so well. How does that affect what you might want to do? And you can look and see, look at all the science that you're going to have to take if you want to work with animals. And you can use that as a discussion with them about what they might want to be doing and how those grades and the classes and things that they're doing now can fit into that. Okay, so just want to make you aware of that because, engineering is a science-intense curriculum. If becoming a veterinarian requires 8 to 10 years of school and all those types of things that maybe kids aren't thinking about. And this is one way that you can talk to them about what some of those things are. So, go on back to that. Another resource for you is Ohio Means Jobs. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this, but Ohio Means Jobs is out there as well. So if you want to click on that link, Bonnie's doing a great job before we got there. So Ohio Means Jobs is a free site where you can go and do a lot of career exploration. Now the cool thing about this is it's backed up by Monster.com. So when your child creates an account, it's not a live account, so to speak, but once they turn 18, they can keep that account and it goes live. So their resume can be out there and they can search through jobs and stuff on here. But if they go on and you see the little guy on the bottom, that has Owen, that's the guy, the bird, they call him Owen, so he's for the high school kids to do that. So if you click on Owen, and it takes you in there, and then you can go, and there are all kinds of different areas that you can go into. So students can do career interest inventory, so if you go under Explore It, there's all kinds of career interest inventories they can do. You can go to Plan It, you can create resumes. It has a resume builder where it actually grades your resume and tells you how you do it. And they can say, hey, you only have a C- on your resume, you need to add this or add that. So it's kind of cool. If you go under Fund It, it talks about budgeting and scholarships and all that great stuff. If you go under Find It, you can search jobs. And these are live jobs that are out there, so you can type in welding. And you can find out all the welding jobs in this area. Because you can put in the radius of where you want to go and all that as well. It has college exploration, so you can go on and explore colleges and things. The little backpack in the corner, if your student creates an account, then they can save what they do. So you could go in and do the interest inventory one time, it would save it, and then 6 months later, because kids always change, always change their minds, you take a different time, you may have something different. And they can look and see how that's different. Once you do the interest inventory, you can then click on your results. It does it by career clusters, and you can search the jobs. You can find out what kind of training. There's even videos they can watch about different types of jobs in there. So it's a great resource. It's free. You don't have to create an account. You can do everything without creating an account. But if you create an account, then it saves us things for you, so you can go back and compare. So that's just another resource that's out there. And it's a great resource for exploring all kinds of things about careers. I know you guys use Overgrad now. So overgrad is also an option for your students to do some other career interest surveys and things that they can explore. Might be kind of fun, have them take the overgrad one, have them take this one, see how they're different. And this has several different ones. It has the explore with interest inventories. I was at Clinton Massey High School the other day, the 8th graders were doing the work values inventory. And so that was cool because then it pointed into a specific cluster that the work values were very similar to that. So there's a lot of really good resources there. Back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so tips for building career awareness with your team. You can talk about home as the first workplace. You know, they have jobs. Do your students have jobs they have to do? Regular jobs that they don't on time? You know, what happens when they don't? That kind of thing. Talk about your own career. Keep talking. You know, what's it like? How'd you get into it? What kind of schooling did it take? Have you always been in the same job? What do you do every day? You know, do they know that? Sometimes they may overhear things, but they may not know exactly the nuts and bolts. But that's how they're going to learn. Discover and nurture their interests. You guys know all these things. Expose them to the world of work. Build their soft skills. That's the number one thing employers are saying that students are missing, are those soft skills or those employability type skills. Allow them to follow their career dreams. And that's a tough one sometimes for parents, because you may have certain goals that you have for your child, but it may not be their goals. You know, and sometimes you gotta let them take their own path. They gotta make their own mistakes, and that's really hard to do. But you know, you wanna make sure that they don't feel like they were born into that role and they have to do it, because sometimes we can put those perceptions on them and put that pressure on them, and it may not be for the positive. So, but exploration is the best way, being flexible, and look at the various paths, because not everybody's going to follow the same path. You could probably talk to the person sitting next to you and say, how'd you get to where you're at? And your path's going to be different from what theirs is. And everybody's got to find their own. Some people have straight lines, they know exactly what they want to do. Other people need to wander around a little bit and get some experience. So it's going to differ with everybody. And this is just some statistics about what happens without a plan. You know, used to be people got through college in 4 years. Now it takes 5 and 6 years. A lot of times that's because they're switching majors and changing things. And every time you do that, it costs more money. So if you do some of that exploration on the front end, then you're more likely to be successful on the back end. Costs are rising faster than inflation. There's some other college data. We won't go to all those, but there's college data, which is a great website to look up. It has great information about all the schools. You can put it in. It tells you what the typical SAT or ACT score to get into that school is. It tells you room and board. It tells you all kinds of stuff about every single school. And you can look up, I did a presentation where I had the Ohio State example there. It gives you all of that. You know, what's the typical student that's accepted? What do they look like? So that's a great website, college data. My College Options is another one you can put in and do all kinds of research with that, and research different majors and different schools that offer that. So those are two great ones. Time for Payback is a really cool thing that I just discovered this year. Check that out with your students. It's a game, so you get on and you say, I want to go to school for this, and then it takes you into, says, okay, do you want to work or do you not want to work? And in the bottom is a little counter that tells you how much debt you're racking up. And every decision that you make changes it. If you opt to party over the weekend or go to your job and work, it changes that. So it's really a pretty cool game. It's a web app. It's called Time for Payback. You just get to that and it'll show you that. So I just want to give you a little overview about Great Oaks, because that is one of the options that your students have. Next year, as sophomores, they'll get a chance, if they would like to, come visit and tour into this club. We came last year as 8th graders and got a chance to check it out. We do have summer camps as well. I'll talk about that in a minute. But career tech programs, there are a lot of good things out there for that. It's not the same career tech education as the old vocational one was 40 years ago. I used the example of automotive. Think about cars 30 years ago. Are they the same cars they are now today? So the people that are working on them, do you think they have the same skills? Some of them, yes, but they also have to have a lot of high technical skills. And that's true with a lot of jobs that are out there. There's a huge skill gap. So just a quick 2-minute from some students.
What makes Great Oaks great is the fact that they not only introduce you to future jobs in your career as a health professional, but they also help you to get there.
In the future, I'd like to major in electrical engineering. I am currently looking at schools, deciding between UC or Case Western.
I want to go to college because I just want to move higher up and have a better chance in my future.
I want to go off to college to get my business degree so I can own my own salon. It's going to be like a spa and a salon.
What we're ultimately studying for is to get our National Sterile Processing certification. What that means is that we'll be able to be hired for any sterile processing position in any healthcare facility.
One of the bigger certifications I'll leave here with is the ASC certification. The ASC certification is for professional mechanics.
Right when I graduate, I also want to get different experiences, and so I'm going to do 4 years of college.
Not only will I be going to college next year, I will be also working part-time in heavy equipment industry.
After leaving here, you can go right to a vet's office or you can go to college. There are multiple great options.
I never dread going to school. I'm always up on time. I'm always super early. I like everything about this place.
This school has really exceeded my expectations. Your future's in your hands. Take it very seriously. Study, study, study.
Be productive. Don't sit around. Just stay working. Keep at it. Don't give up.
You can just further your passions and learn what you want to do.
If you're thinking about coming to Great Oaks, it's a great school and you will really excel here.
So that's just from the student's point of view. We've got a lot of really great students that come to us for lots of different reasons. Okay, so if you're interested in exploring the Oaks, we have open houses every year. They're primarily for sophomores, but they're also for anybody that's interested. And I encourage 8th grade, 9th grade parents, if it's something that you might think that you might want to do, come check us out, because that's something you can come, and if you come and you don't like it, that's okay too, because then you can cross that thing off your list. Because I always tell students that finding a career field that you're interested, if you can cross things off the list, that's absolutely just as important as finding something that you like. They can, we have adult ed programs, but most of the students that you saw, like ones interviewed, are high school students. So they're juniors and seniors in high school. They are still Sycamore students, but they just attend with us during the day. So they take classes over there. So instead of taking all those elective classes, they're actually picking a career program. So they're studying auto mechanics 2.5 hours a day, or cosmetology, or secondary practical nursing. Unlike secondary practical nursing, if your student wants to be a nurse, they can go to Scarlet Oaks, and by the time they graduate from Sycamore High School, they can be a licensed practical nurse. And in a year and a half, they can be an RN. So it's a great fast track in a lot of cases. And these are on the website too. So the other thing that we offer for students as a way of exploring, and we've done this for 3 years, and we're doing it again this summer, is we have summer camps. So they're career camps for students to check out a career field for a week. So they come for a week, it's $50 for an entire week, we feed them every day, they take field trips, they get a chance to be in the lab. So if they're interested in like welding, they'll be in the welding lab doing welding. If they're interested in culinary, they'll be cooking. So we do those at all 4 of our campuses during June. We haven't selected the ones, it kind of depends on the teachers. Last year we ran culinary arts, we ran a health camp, kids actually got CPR certified, so some of those types of things. So it's an option, again, it's not a commitment, it's just your kid's interested in that. It's a great way to check out a career field. Sometimes they discover it's not what they thought it was, and other times they're like, wow, I didn't have any idea about this. So that's something that's coming up too. So thank you for your time. I'll be around afterwards if you have some questions. And here's Brenda.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah, very much. I was just with Sarah and another counseling colleague and some of our English teachers at the Oaks a couple of weeks ago. And that was my second time on the campus. We were at Scarlet Oaks. And I was truly amazed at, again, the opportunities for students. An example, we were looking at the cosmetology program, and one of the students was sharing with us that, again, she'll be able to sit for her cosmetology boards upon graduation. And that same exact program taken in the adult ed version at the Oaks is over $20,000. And so the student was able to have access to that curriculum, have the same exact licensure as an adult, and save the time and the money. So, you know, again, some really wonderful opportunities and ways for students to begin to get immersed, get credentials in careers. So just definitely want to give that shout out. So I'm going to be talking with you folks. I've got the tail end of the presentation. So we are, I wouldn't say we're exactly at third base. We're second base approaching third, and then be heading for home here shortly. But again, Bonnie and I have been talking with your students in their aviator bells, and this week and last week, And we've been talking with them about much of the same information that you're hearing tonight. One of the things that we've been encouraging students to do is to get involved, because we know that research shows that students that are involved in one extracurricular, whether that's a club, an activity, a sport, something that's beyond the classroom, that they're going to have a better high school experience. They're actually going to perform better academically because of that connection that goes beyond the classroom. So we shared with students how to find out about the different clubs and activities. And of course, our athletics department has their specific webpage that talks about the different athletic opportunities that we have. And then when it comes to the clubs and the organizations, if you go to the Sycamore High School website, and at the bottom there are tabs, if you were to click on the activities tab, it will pull up what we call our activities booklet. And that has a listing in alphabetical order of all of the clubs and activities available at Sycamore. There's also a description next to it, which is really helpful, because I'll tell you by some of the titles, I'm thinking, I don't really know what that is. But then when you look at the description, you get to understand it. And then it also shares with you who the sponsor is. So who the adult, typically it's a faculty member that sponsors that club. So your student can then contact that sponsor and ask, you know, hey, Mr. Griga, can you tell us when art club meets? And are there any dues? What's the room that it meets in, etc. And also another great way to find out specifics about clubs and activities is to check our daily announcements that Carol Wolkoff, our head secretary, puts out every day. And those are also available on the website. That lets you know on a daily basis the different clubs and activities that are meeting and various opportunities. And we know for some students, because of transportation issues, etc., volunteering might be something that might work better for their schedule. So it doesn't necessarily have to be at Sycamore. We know that having that additional connection to others really makes a difference. So then the last part that we're going to be talking about is mental wellness. And obviously this is a topic that we could have an entire evening on, so this is really a brief overview. And really what we were wanting to bring to awareness of students is the importance of help seeking and talking with adults when students have concerns about themselves, if they have concerns about peers, or concerns even about adults, that the importance of really seeking that assistance. And also helping students to differentiate between a feeling that they're having, maybe something that's more temporary, versus a concern that's more long-lasting. So as a part of that, we have been talking with students about warning signs associated with suicide risk. Recognizing, and certainly you all are aware that from a national perspective, that we are seeing suicide rates increase with adolescents and with children that are younger than teenage years. And certainly there is a lot of discussion in the mental health community regarding the why behind that, and I certainly have my own thoughts. And so this is something that we need to continue to talk about, and we need to continue to build capacity for our sons and our daughters and our students to know what to do. Again, if they've got concerns about themselves or about a peer or about an adult. And then we also are sharing about some community resources. We're extremely fortunate in Hamilton County to have the number of mental health resources that we have. And yet, certainly it seems as though there's more that is needed. And I'll talk a little bit more about the crisis cards that hopefully you picked up when you walked in. One of the things that Bonnie and I have been talking with students about as well is the phenomena of vaping, juuling, and e-cigarettes. My guess is that for the majority of you, me included, and I have an 18-year-old and a 20-year-old, these are not things that any of us really experienced when we were teenagers. It was more cigarettes and marijuana and so forth. We definitely know that vaping, juuling, and e-cigarettes are things that our students are experimenting with. And I go back to something that Sarah had said earlier in terms of the role of school and the role of parents, and how important it is for you as parents to have conversations and ongoing conversations with your sons and daughters, and really educating yourself regarding the risks associated with vaping, juuling, e-cigarettes. So some of the things that Bonnie and I have been sharing with students is that it definitely is, can be this perception that it's safer than cigarettes. So, you know, it's really not that big a deal, and really there can be some minimization on a student's part. And since it is somewhat of a new phenomena, there really isn't a lot of research available or data yet regarding the long-term impacts of use. What we do know is that some of the chemicals that students and anybody who's vaping or juuling or using e-cigarettes, that they're very similar to the carcinogens that are in traditional tobacco and cigarettes. Another major concern, and many of you are probably aware, is that there's quite a bit of research, body of research regarding the teenage brain, and recognizing that for all of us, our brains did not fully develop, particularly the frontal lobe, until the age of 25. So we have sons and daughters that are 14, 15 years of age, and essentially their brains, particularly the frontal lobe, so that judgment and reasoning part of the brain, is there's neuroplasticity, meaning that it's at a ripe time for people to learn, for adolescents to learn. Well, how that can backfire is when teens are involved in alcohol or other drug use, vaping, juuling, or e-cigarettes, essentially through the use of those substances, they are rewiring the circuitry of their brain to have this pleasure and reward center. So that is why it's definitely a concern, whether it's alcohol and other drugs, or whether it's the e-cigarettes and vaping and juuling, that our adolescents are at higher risk of addiction. And that's why it's so important that you're having these conversations with your sons and daughters, you're educating yourselves regarding the risks. You're going into their bedrooms and you're looking around, you're looking through their backpacks. You're being a very involved parent. If your son or daughter is going somewhere, you're calling those other parents. You're awake when they walk in and looking at them, and I imagine for some of us, our parents did the same things. So again, such an important topic for us to stay on top of with our sons and daughters. And what we also know is that there can be quite a bit of relationship with the use or experimentation of alcohol and other drugs, as well with that mental wellness component. So for students that are maybe struggling with some mental health concerns, the coping mechanism or skill that they may be using, which isn't certainly a healthy one, is they may be self-medicating. So again, all of these things really go hand in hand. So what Bonnie and I have been talking with students about is probably on any given day, and for any of us that live with teenagers, on that left-hand side, you probably notice your son or daughter goes through this multiple times, even in a day, where they're feeling worry or sadness or loneliness or some type of strong emotion, joy, happiness, what have you. So certainly those are normal human emotions. Where we begin to have some concern is on the right-hand side. So if we're noticing that it's more of an ongoing pattern, something that typically is lasting 2 weeks or longer, where more days than not, whatever the emotion is or the concern is really beginning to impact the level of functioning of the adolescent. And that's when we know that we need to really begin to look at getting some additional help with some outside resources. And this is what we share with the students is this is very similar because these are medical concerns. Mental health concerns are medical concerns. So very similar to if someone falls and breaks an arm or has pneumonia, we go to the doctor. And same thing with a mental health concern. We need to engage with a professional. Then we've been talking with students about the warning signs regarding suicide risk. And certainly this is quite a list in front of you. It's not an exhaustive list, although it's helpful to familiarize yourselves with what some of those warning signs may be. It's certainly something that we see with some regularity when we're talking with students who maybe have concerns about themselves or about a peer or at times an adult, is with social media. It could be a text message or a snap or a tweet or someone's instant messaging where they're not necessarily directly having a conversation, yet they're making some vague statements or in some cases some very direct statements about suicidal thoughts and possibly some things that that student or peer has done. So again, we're trying to familiarize students with some things to look for if they've got concerns about themselves or concerns about a peer or an adult. And the other thing that we're really wanting to infuse in students is that there's a lot of hope for assistance when it comes to mental health concerns. And the number one way that we can help prevent suicide is for an individual to get appropriate mental health treatment and an appropriate diagnosis, and then get whatever the treatment is based upon that diagnosis. So again, we are very blessed to have the resources that we have in Hamilton County, to have a wonderful children's hospital. We have the largest number of psychiatric inpatient beds of any city in the country for the United States. So we are extremely fortunate, and yet still our children's hospital is consistently very full. So that tells you about the need that's out there in terms of psychiatric and mental health care. So what we are, again, emphasizing to students is the importance of reaching out to a trusted adult. And then typically we will say, why do you think we ask you to reach out to an adult versus reach out to your peer? Any ideas why we would say that? So we're asking them to do something that's not developmentally typical for them. You know, an adult would be the last person that they would want to share it with. But why are we encouraging that? Why are we saying that's what you have to do? Yes, they're not equipped at 14 and 15 years old, 16, 17, to know what to do. And so that's where we say adults are in a position to get that person the help that they need. And it's quite a burden. And maybe you've had that experience in your own family with a son or daughter that's very, very concerned about a friend. And then once they've had the courage to share that with you and you've been able to work through it and inform other adults and the important adults, it's just like this huge burden lifted, like, oh my gosh, I'm not that person's lifeline. And so again, we really are encouraging, it is that adult that the students need to reach out to. So then that's when we're helping students identify who do they go to. And so we're talking about resources at school as well as resources in our community. Because as we know, thanks to social media and technology, we have 24/7 access to each other. So it's really important to know about those community resources in addition to school resources. So Bonnie and I have been emphasizing, again, as Dr. Mack was saying, the plethora of support that's available in high school. So encouraging students to talk with school counselors, to talk with their teachers, administrators, our school resource officer, school nurse, and a coach, a trusted adult at school. And then if you look at the crisis card that all of you picked up, that's the laminated card that's the size of a credit card. Every student has received a crisis card, and on the front and the back are some very important numbers for Hamilton County. The first number is that 911 number, which certainly if there's imminent concern for a risk, that we encourage people to utilize that number. The second number is the Children's Hospital Psychiatric Intake Response number, the 636-4124 number. And that is, that will take a person directly to Children's Hospital, to a trained individual who can talk either a teen or adolescent or a parent, a concerned person through whatever their concern is and make whatever the appropriate referrals are. And then about, I think it's on the fourth line, is the Talbert House. It's a suicide crisis text line, as well as a hotline for mental health, emotional concerns. And on the back of the card, this is an addition that we've made in the past couple of years, and these are Sycamore-specific cards that we have printed. There are the 4 municipalities that we have in our district. So there's the Montgomery, Blue Ash, Sycamore Township, and Sims Township police departments. Sims and Sycamore, that's part of Hamilton County Sheriff's Department, but it's their non-emergency numbers.